Face Value, in collaboration with African Media Association, Migrants Commission, and 103 Malta's Heart.
Hello, I'm Elena.
And I am Rachel.
And we welcome you to another episode of Face Value, where we explore the relationships of people from different nationalities living here in Malta.
Today we have in the studio with us Rubina and Mario, who are a common relationship through their work with an NGO. Mario and Rubina, welcome to the studio.
Hello.
Hi, Elena and Rachel. Thank you for this invitation.
It's welcome. So let's start with you, Rubina. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am Rubina. I'm from Libya. I'm living here since 2014.
Wow.
And I am a medicine student as well.
Awesome. Mario?
I'm Mario. I'm a social worker.
Okay.
And I know Rubina as a child.
Wow.
And she's grown well.
Sounds like a solid start.
Right?
How do you feel about that, Rubina?
Actually, I know Mario since long time ago. I knew him through my mom. He used to work with my mom. And then after he came close to our family and to me as well. So we became friends, me and Mario.
Good.
That's very sweet.
That's good. So both of you work with NGO, right? I wanted to find out, you are also a medicine student?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you came to Malta, is this something you should be, I don't know, I don't want to talk about the age now, but you were very young then.
Yes.
So what was your motivation? Why did you decide to work in that direction? Like, why did you decide to do something like that?
Regarding what?
NGO. Why? Because you guys got to meet each other through
Yes.
work. Yes.
Yes. Because when I came...
Tell me, it's okay.
When I came here, when I started to... I was young at that time.
Yeah.
So he used to work with my mom. And actually, my mom, she started to work with the NGO because she used to work as a translator. So I knew Mario through my mom. So my mom, she is the one who was working with the NGOs more and translating and things like that.
Rubina
And
was not working at the time.
so I started to know people through my mom because she was working with the
So you got to
NGOs.
see a bit about that environment.
Yes.
But yeah, because sometimes, people don't understand that as adults, what you do, your children are actually taking notes and they are also building relationship through your own network as well. So Mario, I know that if you want to describe yourself, how would you describe yourself?
Well, professionally, I'm a
Yes.
social worker and I've been in social work for a very long time. But I've also been quite an activist in Malta on various issues. And most of my life, I've worked in the area of migration. So that's let's say most of what I've done. Obviously I have other interests, but that's the kind of the biggest.
That's the center. Okay. When you talk about social worker, it means different things to different people. What would you say social work is about?
It does mean different things to different people, a lot, and the way we practice is also different. For me, it is a lot about empowering people. Helping people find resources. It's about liberation. It's about helping people be mindful of their dreams and then try to achieve some of those steps towards that dream, no?
Awesome.
It is a lot about that. Social work obviously can also be a lot about control, for example, or guiding people through legal systems. There is that, but I believe social work is a lot more than that, than simply filling in forms for people.
Yes, that question is actually intentional because when we hear social worker, the word on the street is like policing, like control,
Yes. And there is an element of that in the profession, but it has to be only an element, and you do that only when it's good for the person.
But it is not the center of the...
It should not be the center at all. It should not be the center at all.
How did you decide to get involved in this field?
Oh my God, social work. Do you remember the film Dead Man Walking? It's well, you don't remember it, of course. Sorry, wrong question. Well, originally I wanted to become a monk. And then when I decided that I'm not going to become a monk, I had to decide, well, I need to work and earn money. And then I was at the cinema watching Dead Man Walking, and there was, in the cinema, one of the characters is a nun, a social worker, and she's helping this person who is going to be, he's going to die because he has a death sentence. And I was inspired by that. And then I did the course, and the course was, I always say, the course at university was very, very beautiful.
Rubina, coming to you now. How has your experience been living in Malta for, say, 9 years now?
Yes, 9 years. For me, when I came here, as I mentioned, for you, I was young. So I didn't know everything, you know. So the life when you come here and you are young, so usually the parents, they decide for you.
Yes, of course.
Where to study, where your friends are, and things like that. It's started to become different for me when I started to grow up. I started to love Malta more. I started to integrate more because at this time of age, I started to choose my friends who they are, and I decide where I study, where I want to work, what I wanted to be. So when I was young, I loved Malta, yes, because this is the first country where I came to, and I started studying and things like that. A new culture, new country, new language to learn. But I loved it more when I started to grow up. Yes.
The beginning must have been the easiest transition, I imagine. How old were you when you moved here?
14.
Okay, so then from that, like such formative years also of friendships and
Exactly.
your
yes,
school as
when
the
you are
society.
still young. Yes. When
So
you
how
are
was the experience of moving to a Maltese school in the beginning?
It was fine, but since I was studying in a Libyan school as well, so after moving from the Libyan school to the Maltese school and to start a new system, to start study with a new language, I had a bit of a culture shock to start from there, to move from the Libyan school to the Maltese school. And as well, it was a bit difficult for me to understand all the lessons and everything in English. As I mentioned for you, it was a new language. As well, when I joined the school, I didn't speak English fluently. So after the help from the teachers, from the family, I started to catch up. But at the beginning, it was fine.
At what point did you begin to speak English fluently? I'm curious.
After 3 months from studying at the school. Yes.
Oh, wow.
After 3 months.
You really got a lot of help.
Quite an intensive.
Yes, intense.
Program.
Actually, my family, they didn't believe that I started to speak English because all the time I was quiet. My mom, she's trying to practice with me English. As I mentioned for you, my mom, she's translator. So I started to hear from the student, from the teacher, because the teacher, she was trying to force me, imagine by force. And she used to give me a book. She's telling me, you go at home, any word that you don't understand, you need to highlight it for me. So we need to look it up. And at the beginning, I remember that I used to highlight the whole book.
It was all yellow.
Yes, all yellow. Just I'm not understanding anything. And then I started to speak, to do presentations and things like that.
At 3 months?
3 months.
Wow.
3 months, I started to speak English fluently.
3 months is quite impressive, but also at that age, I think
Because
when you don't have any other option, you're going to pick it up.
Exactly. You need to speak, you need to communicate, you need to understand. Because at the beginning, even when the teachers, they ask me for something, I used just to look at them. Because I was even feeling shy. It's not my language. So even if I know the answer, I was feeling shy that I do mistakes. Because the level of the student who they are studying with me, they speak really, really good English. And in comparing with me, so I was a bit feeling shy.
Were there other students in your class who don't speak English?
Sorry?
Were there other students in your class who don't speak English?
Yes. They don't
So
speak
what,
English.
from your own perspective, how do you think the students, how do they manage in class?
Actually, there was a class for the foreigners where they have intense attention on English.
Oh, that's good.
So even the teachers, they were helping us to translate like everything in simple words, try to don't explain the lesson in, let's say, difficult words, unfamiliar words. So they were helping us a lot. Even the English class, for us, it was separately. So we have the intense attention and things like that. So we catched up because this group, we came together. Imagine we were about 5 from different nationality. So we came together, we catched up. together. Not at the same time. I mean, not all people, they can catch up that much fast in 3 months.
But it's
or
so
things
good that
like
you had other people that were going through the same thing that you were going through, because otherwise it feels like a very isolating experience.
Yes. No, but the school, they try to accommodate it.
That's good. And also, I do understand the feeling of not feeling confident in another language. It really has an impact on your personality as well. So you would think that you would be able to exude, like, you definitely don't seem shy to me at all. But I do perfectly understand the feeling of you have another language and you don't really know how to click in that way. You can't make jokes the same way. You can't use sarcasm the same way. For me, fluency is if I can manage to use sarcasm well. Otherwise, I don't consider myself fluent.
So you don't get into trouble.
So basically 2 languages. That's it.
I would like to ask Mario. So your motivation has been to help people, because when you saw that movie and all that. How has the experience been for you?
Mostly I've worked in migration, and overall it's been always very enriching. I mostly worked for NGOs.
Okay.
So I mostly worked in various roles in the NGO sector.
Okay.
So it's a bit different, let's say, if you're working more in the formal sector. So that's different. But mostly the advantage of this job was, or working in this field, was always meeting people from different cultures, being challenged, and countries, of course, being challenged all the time. Having to always question yourself in terms of your approach. Often, let's say, what you have learned, you realize is not working in this context because the context is different. And I like that. That is what I like mostly. I want to pick up on the language issue, actually, because when we work with people, when people come to Malta, the assumption is, and we tell them, you have to learn English. Now, there's a functional part in that of course, if you want to live and work in Malta, English is a functional language to learn. But there's another part to it, which I always find very problematic, and there's the assumption that if you don't speak English, you're not civilized. And this is at the unconscious level. I don't think people do it consciously, but it is there. And we miss on the richness that people bring with them simply because of the language barrier, but not appreciating that people are very fluent in their own mother tongue and have their own richness of culture, of knowledge, etc. So I obviously, as a social worker, have to tell people you need to go to English classes, but always very mindful that they don't speak English as I don't speak Amharic, Bambara, Somali, Tigrinya, whatever.
So is it the migrants themselves who feel this way, that probably they are not civilized, or the people at the end of the spectrum?
I think it's the people the way they're treated.
Okay.
The way they're treated. And obviously when you're speaking to someone, usually in English or Maltese, and the person can't answer you back, or can answer you back in very basic English, or using very, very simple words in English, people get the wrong impression. But obviously, if you just pause that for a moment, and then obviously most people working in this profession work with translators, then obviously through the translator, you see the richness of the person and the richness of the language, the richness of culture. But we miss on that, as a country, and sometimes I think also
I guess just in terms of practicality, it makes it harder because obviously someone can't just have a translator at all times. So in your day-to-day life, it makes it more complicated. And also, that is also one thing that I always thought about Arabs in terms of being, if we can say, quote unquote, accepted in the community or not. The transition must be so much easier to learn Maltese for someone who speaks Arabic, And I think that is such an amazing advantage. And I never really understood why then in the fabric of Maltese society, it has not been encouraged to learn Arabic on the other hand, because we know the extreme dialect of what an Arabic language is. Instead, the more classical part, and you can easily adapt into that. So, I mean, that is one advantage that I feel could be taken into account much more. Because then, as you say, yes, the point of view is always learning English. And we have talked about the concept of language many times in many other episodes, because it does seem like it's this advantage and disadvantage at the same time. The fact that it's a bilingual country, because had it been only one language, you would have to learn it. You wouldn't really have an option. Instead, here it's always a bit either one or the other. So
because language is very much linked to who we are as an identity. It's very intimate. It's also the words you use to express yourself, and the most also intimate part of yourselves. I think if we want to simplify, but the history of Malta is very much trying to distance itself from the Muslim Arab world, I'm simplifying a lot here, but there is that. And I feel that now, even with the younger generations and some radio programs or even some use of Instagram, I'm seeing more people being more open at looking at the truth of our history. Not that the history that we were taught is not true, but I think there are many gaps. And it seems that the younger generations now are more looking at those gaps with more interest.
Rubina, what was your impression of Maltese as an Arabic speaker?
For me, regarding the language, it wasn't for me that much hard to learn the language, as you mentioned, because it's similar to Arabic. The culture, since both they are Mediterranean, we have kind of the same culture, welcoming, hospitality, and things like that. So my impression was just when I had to start to study at the Maltese school, I just had that culture shock that I am in a new culture, a new system, and things like that. I'm got used to things they are different now. But as I told you, I liked Malta from the beginning, because even the people, they are kind, easy even to integrate with. You can find, yes, some people they are not, but you can generalize. But from the beginning, as I told you, even the teachers, they were helping me to learn English, because they want to see that student, they want to hear her. They feel that I am intelligent, I have a lot to say, a lot to give, but the language, it was the barrier. But they were helping me a lot. Yes.
Yeah. I feel that since language is a means of communication, it has to go both ways. So if I'm saying something and you don't understand me, it's actually, there's no form of communication, and you can't read my mind, obviously. Yeah. So maybe trying to play devil's advocate now, this could be the reason why the other party or someone else is looking at, if you cannot speak my language, probably you are not civilized enough, But if we begin to have this conversation and around, take a pause, like Mario said, and look beyond your own language or the acceptable language of communication and look from the perspective of the other person. Mario, what do you think that can be done? Is this conversation being pushed enough from your own perspective as an NGO worker, as someone who works in this field?
Not at all. Really, the issue of language, in the sense that there are obviously people like UNHCR, for example, who would usually publish notices in the various languages. So, for example, when COVID hit, it was UNHCR that was translating the official notices that government was issuing in Maltese and English into the various languages of the groups that are in Malta. So there is that. But I think it's the artistic, cultural world that needs to pick this up more, and even in a playful way. I've worked on projects in the past and we did it, but on a very, very small scale. So, for example, we took the names of plants in different languages, depending on the people participating in our workshops. And then we were hanging those names in written form in the area where we were working. But no, definitely not enough. And I want to share an experience, a very small experience, a woman I was working with. And at one point I was perhaps a bit frustrated from myself and said you need to learn English, kind of. She was in Malta for a very long time.
You see?
And she because obviously you need to. And she told me, how long have you been working with us, Mari? And I said, well, for a very long time. She told me why aren't you speaking Somali? And I'm yes, that's exactly it. Yes, that's exactly it. And it is true, and it is true. And that is it. Yeah. Obviously, there is the functional part. We cannot remove that. Yeah. But we lack the appreciation of the diversity of languages and to celebrate all languages and not
place one as
kind of link one to certain characteristics.
Yeah. On that note, we'll be taking a short break to catch our breaths, obviously. And the program is still Face Value on 103 Malta's Heart. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Face Value, in collaboration with African Media Association, Migrants Commission, and 103 Malta's Heart.
And we're back on Face Value 103 Malta's Heart. Today we're joined by Rubina and Mario, and we're talking about the relationship. And specifically now we were touching upon the importance of language and what the experience of the Maltese and English language in Malta is. I wanted to take a bit of a step back because we have mentioned, Rubina, the whole experience that you've had in school in terms of learning English and so on. But I was interested in understanding if there were any other culture shocks in the school experience that were besides just the learning component.
Yes, actually, at the beginning, I had the culture shock regarding the outing. As I mentioned for you, I used to study even in a Libyan school as well.
Okay.
But most of the time, actually all the time, I was attending the Maltese school. So for the Libyan school, I just go for the exams and I study by myself. And for us in the Libyan school, the outing, how it is, we gather together, we divide into groups. And like, for example, I start saying, listen, guys, I'm going to get all the drinks for you. Okay. Another girl, she's going to say, I'm going to get a homemade pizza. And we decide each one what's going to bring. And the school, they support us with the materials, with the things. They give us the drums from the school, the guitar.
Drums?
Yes, imagine. This is how it is for us. And we go without the uniform. We go there, imagine, from the school. It's in San Juan, from San Juan till Ta'ali. We are dancing all the way, dancing and singing until I lose my voice that day. And then we stay there a whole day in Ta'ali, and then they tell us, listen, tomorrow is going to be a holiday because I can see that you are tired. It's fine. The Maltese school, I think after 2 months, they said, there's an outing. I said, finally outing. I can be with friends and things like that. Okay. And I was asking the girls, what you are going to bring? And I felt that they're looking at me like, why she's asking what I'm going to bring? And then I said, maybe they don't like sharing food. It's fine. I'm going to get mine. And then I was asking the teachers, do I have to come with the uniform? And they are telling me, yes, obviously you need to come with the uniform. And it was in my mind, but it's not obvious for me to come with the uniform. Mm-hmm. And then I came the day after with my food for sure. And I got more. I said maybe one girl, she will try to share with me and things like that. We went inside the bus. And I felt no singing, no drums, no dancing. Even I tried to speak to the girl who she was sitting in front of me. The teacher, she told me, can you just be quiet?
Oh.
And then we arrived there. I found all the students with notebooks, pens. They're trying to take notes. And then I realized that it's a science outing, it's part from the course. It's not time where you go to dance and things like that. And for me, I was feeling really sad. Is this the outing? This is what I was excited for.
This is what my life is going to be like.
Yes. Really, this is how it is. There is no dancing, nothing. And I remember even I went with my food and I came back with my food home. I didn't have time. I didn't even get my notebook or a pen. Imagine I was bored. Can I have a paper, please? Can I have a pen, please?
We've all been there.
At least to try to write something.
Yeah.
From that day, I stopped going outing. Imagine. I stopped going outing. And I had a lot of reports to my mom. They thought that my mom, she's not sending me to the outing.
Because technically they're mandatory,
Yes, they're mandatory.
You were like, no, I don't want to do that.
Part of the course. And I was saying to myself, why I need to go in a van and then you go there. It's just science, you need to take notes. And then actually I was surprised that even the exams, some of them, they are part from the outing. Mm-hmm. They ask you about things that happen in the outing because they are part of the course. So for me, outings, they were like my first culture shock,
So her mom the next day came to work and told me, Mario, how do you do your outings at school?
She thought that I am lying.
And I'm like, of course, I think that. And I'm like, what happened? And then obviously she was showing me like, this is how we do outings. And I'm like, I want to be at your outings.
Our teachers, imagine our teachers, they're singing with us, our headmaster playing the drums, all of us. So when you see the bus while they're going, the driver is Maltese. He can't imagine that these people, they're going, students going for outing.
But I mean, your outing then would be just like a picnic or something.
Yes,
you would just go out for the day, which is nice. It seems like a team building sort of thing.
Yes, if you see the bus from outside, the bus just moving from the people.
I got to experience something like that, but it wasn't a school outing. But when I was living in Jordan, we had done a day trip there with some of my Jordanian friends. And then at a certain point, it was something like it was a tour that was catered to Jordanian people, because usually everything that we had done before was very touristy. It was mainly expats, but So we go there for the day, and it was the same thing. They just came automatically with drums. I was like, "Why do you have drums?" And we didn't know anyone else of the people there. But it's like automatically everyone's friends with everyone, and they just started like playing and the music, and it was so loud. But it was really, really fun.
Actually, playing drums and singing, it's not just only for the Libyans. It's for
Yeah,
us as Arabs.
exactly.
It's just like-
But it was just so funny because like we just had a backpack with food for the day, and he literally had a drum. It's like, you know, the ones that you put between your legs. That
Yes, yes,
He
the
just
big
like he
one.
just had that one in the backpack. I was like, okay, cool.
Yes, yes.
But it was really, really cool. And it seems like everyone automatically knows all the songs, or they make up the beats as they go. It was hilarious. I loved
But
it.
that's on that note, that makes me to think about integration actually. So why would say that was a cultural shock for you, and the teacher was like, yes, obviously you had to come with a uniform. Is there something that the NGO or the formal sector is doing to help teachers to, or because for instance, we know that there are people who come here with their children, who come here with family,
Yes.
So we talk about integration. Most times when we talk of integration, we just the adults, you have to integrate to the system. But what about the children, you are in a new environment, for instance, and you go to school and your expectation does not meet up with what you're seeing. And also for the teachers as well, because the teacher will look at you like it's strange to how you are asking her this type of ridiculous question.
Culture shock is a big component of integration, and it's often overlooked.
Exactly.
Even by professionals who would be assessing people for different things.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I mean, Malta has an integration policy, but usually integration is kind of reduced: go to school, go to work, and learn English. Kind of the functional part of an integration. I think there is more awareness about culture shock now, but I think definitely it must become much more mainstreamed. So something that I do in my practice when I meet a person for the first time, obviously I don't tell the person you have culture shock, but I kind of try to ask some questions to check in and see where that person is in that stage, because there are, let's say, 4 stages of culture shock. And it can start, let's say, from what is called the honeymoon period, where you might feel you're in a new country, everything is good, you're safe, or everything is going to be perfect.
Rosy.
And it can end up not in a good way if the person does not manage to adapt. And these stages are overlooked, and people, including children or women or men, there's a stage where people can start getting very isolated. And that's where the community or the people around that person need to be careful and try to help that person, let's say, start adapting again. And culture shock is everything. Actually, in Malta, people would find strange, for example, how we celebrate festas. Fireworks are a big component. The way we relate to pets, for example. Why do I keep a dog or a cat in the house and show them so much love, and then, let's say, I don't share food with my colleague at work? Things that we do and we assume that they're normal because they are normal for us, but from somebody coming from outside, it could be like, why is this behavior like this? And it's very, very important to speak about it and to become more aware of it. There's another part. When a person leaves their own country for a long time and they decide to go back, there is a reverse process called reverse culture shock, because we change. And so when that person goes back to the country of origin, then that person re-experiences culture shock in the reverse way. And it's like, oh my God, I don't do this anymore. And why are you doing this? Or I don't like this. And it's very, very important to be mindful of it.
Yeah. Also, is the term, I don't know if the term is actually correct to use that, cultural shock for the locals themselves, because for instance, if you see somebody speaking loudly like hello, where are you from, so is that a thing about cultural shock for the locals themselves?
I mean, if you let's say get a Maltese person and put that person in a context of people who are not Maltese, let's say in a group, and there's only one Maltese person in a group of people who are not Maltese, yes, that person can experience culture shock.
Exactly. Even in Malta,
Of course.
Yes.
Of course, the reaction is usually, and that is where the mistake is done, usually the reaction comes from a place of judgment. You're doing this, you're wrong, you're this, you're that. Rather than saying, oh, this is very different to me, and this is new to me.
So apart from your experience in school, have you felt that part where there is judgment? You know, where the person is looking at you judgmentally because of what is normal to you?
No. Actually, just only the culture shock for me. It was the school, what I'm get used to, what not, especially how to fit in the system. Even lately when I started to look for work and to work, it was a bit hard for me to fit in the system, especially with the work. We are different in that way, how to fit in the system of work and things like that. But other than them, no.
What do you mean by that within the system of work? Like people like have a work ethic that's different, or
No, how to register, for example, with Jobs Plus to get the work
the practicality of it was more complicated
yes.
for you.
Yeah,
It's easy to find a job, but it's not easy to
documentation.
fit in. Yes.
Yeah.
To get the documents to fit in with
The
Jobs Plus.
bureaucracy.
Yes, and to register. Yes.
So, for example, some people might not be aware that, for example, they need a CV. Usually, the CV is a big thing, and that you need to have a CV. The CV needs to be written, and then you kind of use the CV to find a job. For some people, this could be a new way of having to find a job, and usually the NGOs and Jobs Plus offer this service to people.
Yeah. And how has been your experience working in Malta?
It was fine.
You've been doing it for long before you started studying, right?
Yes,
Because you
yes.
started studying recently.
Yes,
Okay.
I was working for 2 years. It was fine for me with the work, as I mentioned for you, just only at the beginning. To be honest, because I was young before and things like that, even the importance of using email and to receive your payslip through the email, it was difficult for me, for us.
Yeah.
Just when I was young, I used to see my mom to take her payslip in hand and papers. So for me, I was waiting at the end of the month to receive my payslip in a paper. I didn't know that I need to check my email and things like that, or to book your leave through an application and things like that. Just it was at the beginning, it's hard, as I told you, to fit in the system. Even if you are sick, you need to call from before. And I was asking myself, how I'm going to know from before that I'm going if I am sick now. And I had one of my managers who was telling me, you felt sick just 1 hour before your shift. And I was saying, yes, I felt unwell 1 hour before my shift. So this is how it was. This is how it was, actually.
Yeah, I can actually relate to the sick leave part. And when I think I was working at the university then, and I was going for a leave, I was sick. So at home, I couldn't go to work, and my colleague was like, did you take the sick leave? And I'm like, but I'm sick now. I wasn't sick yesterday. She said, yeah, but you need to book your leave. I'm like, okay. Because I thought when I resumed, I was like, okay, so I booked the leave after because I was sick yesterday and not before, so I cannot book,
Even I didn't know that when you are sick, like if you are sick in the morning, you didn't go for your shift, then at the evening you felt fine, you went out, let's say, for a coffee. I didn't know this is like a crime or things like that. But if I was sick in the morning and in the evening, I'm getting fine, and tomorrow I'm coming to my shift. So what's the problem if I am sick? So things they didn't happen to me, but I am hearing like from colleagues like something that and that and that happened, and I started to get like, really, they are thinking like this. If she was sick in the morning and in the evening they realized that she went out, this is like a crime, and really they are thinking like this. So from the shock of the school, I had this shock with work, of understanding the system, how it's going.
Well, I think this is also any person starting work, and young person entering the world of work, getting the shock of how the world of work functions.
This is the
Really.
key word for this episode, shock.
Yeah, now an adult.
Work shock. Invented that term just now.
And how did you decide to get involved in wanting to study medicine?
From the beginning, it was my dream.
Okay.
To study medicine because I want to serve people, to help people. As I told you, my mom, she was working with the NGOs. So, and sometimes I had to meet people. For example, if I see someone sick and they mention that sometimes they can't afford to pay money for operation or something, I started to come in my mind like, maybe at one day I can be a doctor, I can go to the camp. Apart from I love meeting people and hearing from their experience, I can treat them, I can know them more. So this is how it came in my mind. Although I didn't start studying in my age, like I had some delay. For example, I finished from, let's say, Form 6 in 2019, and I just start studying now. So there is an age gap between me and the student who they are with me.
Is this
But
something intentional? No. Okay, so it was part of the documentation issues and all that?
it's not, to be honest, the delay, it's not part from the documentation and to be enrolled in the university, because even if you are speaking English fluently, you need to have the academic English to be accepted in the university. So you need to do the IELTS test. You need to get your papers and things like that, especially joining.
So expensive also.
Yes.
Documentation, it's really annoying.
Especially to join a faculty like medicine, it's not that much easy to join. So it was a bit until you do the IELTS exam and things like that to settle your mind that you are going to study for this. You are sure about it.
Yeah.
Because at this time of age, I'm not feeling like to change my mind again. Just I wanted to settle. This is what I am studying for. This is what I want to achieve after. And that's it.
Can you run us through the process of, so somebody's listening and wants to study medicine, how does the process work?
The process from the beginning, if I remember well, there's things to be accepted at the university, and there's things to be accepted at the medicine faculty, because the medicine is not like law. Law is not like a humanities. So to be accepted at the university, you need to get your certificate. You need to have the academic English IELTS certificate, as I told you, and there is even a mark for them. Like, for example, if you are going to join another faculty, let's say it's 6, but for the medicine it's 7, especially in the writing, in the grammar, in the speaking. So there is a range for them. As I told you, so for the medicine it's something. For the normal, just to join a university, it's something else.
And the university offers guidance for this one
Yes.
listening who is interested to join University of Malta and are not sure how to do it. They can contact University of Malta and they offer guidance.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll be going on another break now, just to catch our breath, So we'll be going on the break. It's still Face Value 103 Malta's Heart.
Face Value, in collaboration with African Media Association, Migrants Commission, and 103 Malta's Heart.
And we're back with Face Value 103 Malta's Heart. Today we're joined by Mario and Rubina, who have met through NGO work, and we were just discussing the relationship and now also the experience in working in university after talking about all the culture shock that came with coming to Malta and Maltese schools. Now your new phase, Rubina, is going to university now. And you were just saying that you started a little later than other people did. To be honest, I'm thinking about this a lot now because I'm finishing up my master's, and I don't think that people should start university so early. Honestly, I don't think that at 18 you know what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. I think that you should have like a couple of years that should be mandatory, explorative work. They should do some sort of program of that you do like 5 months in different places or something.
Yes, that's true.
Because it's really hard to know from the beginning what you want to do, and it makes me think back to my experience. I did it right after high school in my bachelor's. But I knew many people who then left it because they didn't want to do it, or they changed their minds, or they started something else. So then they, quote unquote, wasted, which it's never a waste. It's always formative experience. But I don't know. I don't imagine now to think that like people who are 18-year-old are studying medicine, which is something so serious also.
Yes.
It's really... Yeah, it's interesting to think about that now, although like the age gap is not that big, but so you said that now the majority of people are 18?
Yes.
Okay.
For me, I'm not feeling it's affecting me that much, because I'm saying to myself, if I started studying when I was 18, I wouldn't know what is good for me and what's no.
Yeah.
I wouldn't make the right decision. For example, I would be still kind of silly, not caring that much, not studying. And these 4 years of gap that I am seeing them, life experience. So when I came to join the university, I have my points. Just I go to the university, what I'm going to achieve. So for me, I don't have time to waste, because you started in the right time when you are 22. And especially for me, because I got used to the system and like that. So I know what I'm going to achieve. That's it. So I'm focusing more to say it like this. I'm focusing more.
Yeah, no, I think bachelor just feels like a bit of a, how do you say,
It is
limbo
exploratory.
period where you waste your
Especially
time
when you
and you don't
start
start
after
afterwards.
Form 6, when you start,
Yeah.
especially after, you will be already so much exhausted from the exams. You feel like you don't have energy to give. You don't have that mood to study because you already just finished your exams. I'm not saying students, they don't need to join the university, but I'm speaking about my experience.
You're glad
because-
about the decision that you made
Yes.
and how you, and also the fact that you have worked so consistently gives you a different level of discipline that
Yes.
probably you wouldn't have had before. It makes me also think, I remember at my time, a lot of people also were taking a year off between the last year of high school and the beginning of university. And I'm so grateful that I did not do that because I would have just wasted my time. I was thinking, maybe I should do. I am not disciplined. I am not organized. It's just not part of my thing. So
This
that
is
would not
like
work
the
for me.
cultural shock we spoke about earlier, because for me it's an entirely different experience.
How so?
For me in Nigeria, once you finish your secondary school, it is expected that you get into the university, and if you don't get, you are seen as a failure in the society. Like
No, in Italy as well.
yes, it's like so because I know that when I got into the university, I was young because immediately I got in, but of course, not everybody. Some people might not meet the point. Some people because of financial difficulties. Some people they need to maybe whatever reason, but the society expects that you get into the university immediately and get it done with, and then move on to the next. And my father, God rest his soul, that was his expectation. He expects that you do this academically and get it done with before you can think of anything. He doesn't want to hear anything from you.
I know, I totally understand it. But that's also how it's approached. It's approached as something that you have to get it over with, you know?
Yeah.
Which is not it kind of
Yeah, but
takes away from the experience of education in a sense.
because in our own case, by the time you start exploring the world of work and you start heading money, you start to think, for some people, that is what, the notion is. You start to think maybe education is not so you don't need to go through the university at all, since you're already making some amount of money, since you're already responsible for yourself. So parents, on the other hand, are also, scared like, okay, by the time you taste the other world, you don't want to go, somebody telling you have to be in class at 8, you have to do this, you are no longer responsible. So, but for some people, like she said, they need that gap as well to figure it out from the fatigue, because it's a lot of exams actually to get into the university, then to complete that stage. So
Mario, you have also been involved in the world of academia, right?
Kind of marginally, yes, I am.
Okay.
Well, obviously, when I was 18, which is not a very long time ago, that was the expectation. You go to university.
Yeah.
You just go to university. We had a lot less choices than young people today have. So when I was at university, it was, for example, it was not normal for people to do their masters. So it was a bachelor's, and the bachelor's was a thing, you get your BA. And then master's was somebody who would go abroad to get an MA. So I come from that world, whereas now it's actually quite normal for people to do their BA, keep going to their MA, and then start working unless they want to go on to their PhD.
It is sadly, and I say honestly, sadly becoming the non-said requirement to be able to find work for most people.
Yes, that is a high expectation.
And I find it a bit annoying and unfair, to be honest, because it's a certain amount of time that you need to dedicate to that. It's another expense that you need to dedicate to that.
That is a big expectation. I love education. I mean, I believe that education is an important, very important element, and definitely university is important. And people who cannot access university need to have also a lot of options to keep on their education. That Malta offers that. Malta, I think that's one of the very good things that Malta has. Access to different paths to keep on learning and improving yourself. But yes, I definitely agree with you that at 18, you really don't know what you want in life.
What
and
you're
it's a
doing
big
with your
decision. So, for example, as a social worker, I, let's say, did not work in the role of a social worker always throughout my life. There were moments where I moved to different roles. Obviously, always, in my case, in the social sector. That's where I operate. Or teaching, or sometimes teaching social work students. But somehow... Yes, then you do find, and you say okay, perhaps this is what I'm good at, really and truly.
What do you feel you would wish to see more implemented from the world of academia, of education, into the work that you are carrying out now? in social work and outreach.
If I had to focus on social work students and how they're being trained, most definitely more critical thinking and a lot more training, which is not coming from European theories or trainings that are English based or American based or Australian based only. I think those are very, very important, but the world is very diverse and academia is very diverse. And I really believe that young people need to be trained in that way.
So you're saying that it's not about going, go by the books, like just what you were taught. You were taught A, B, C, D. When you get to the field, it doesn't really work like that.
I think we're living in a much more complex world. We're definitely living in a much more complex world than when I graduated. I was 22. It was a very different Malta. And I do believe that young people, even us.
But is the syllabus still the same?
I would say it hasn't changed
Much.
tremendously. But I do think that people need a lot more critical thinking. People need a lot more training on appreciating diversity and dealing with it, knowing how to deal with it, and knowing how to live with it.
Exactly. Yes, especially because they play an important role. They are like the mediators between the migrants that is coming and the fitting into the system. So, but is there an element of practical for the students who study social work? Because
there is. Social work students do go on placements.
Okay.
And that's I think a very beautiful part of the course. I still remember my placements, for example.
Exactly.
I still remember each and every one of my placements and what I've learned in those placements. So I do think that placements are a very important component of any course.
Yes.
Even courses which are more generic, like anthropology, for example, or sociology. A lot of people working studying in, let's say, anthropology, sociology, also end up in the positive sense of the word, working in institutions that usually deal with migration issues. So placements, I would say, is a good idea, and mainstreaming what we call in social work helping skills or the basic counseling skills. I find it a big lack in courses that trains people who eventually will go into the field and be working with people.
Exactly, because if you don't have a feel of what the system is out there right now outside of the classroom, how do you then become, professional, so to speak, or up to date with what the field actually needs?
And then in Maltese, just last one, no, Tracy, sorry about to interject, but I mean, today, any person who is going to, even a person who is studying in Malta and plans to live and study all of his or her life in Malta, that person is not going to be only relating to Maltese people as a professional. So those skills need to be there.
And that was why I was talking about the teachers. If we are talking about integration, I feel that it should not just be about the migrants themselves, because even the locals, they feel this shock. And when they see somebody, they feel like, excuse me, what is happening here? And maybe that is where we are actually missing it, because this melting point, we are focusing a lot on the migrants integrating, and we are lacking the aspect where we have to look at also the local. How do they feel about all this?
It has to always be a two-way process.
I think it's very important that you are bringing it up through also the experience that you have, because it always ends up being a bit of a tricky conversation, because at least from what I have experienced, which is not much, but it seems like we're always speaking more or less about the same things to the same people, And it is valid to say that from someone who has lived in their life, in their home place, all their life, their sensations or their feelings of having what you're mentioning as a shock are not validated to the same extent. The issue that I take with is more the reaction to it and the way that you make a comment, the way that you make a judgment, or the way on which you're basing, your decisions as to how you're going to interact with a group based on the one experience that you had at one person once. And so then for the rest of your life, you will say, but they're all like that, because I've heard that many, many times. So it is important to take account both to have true dialogue that you will be able to have between Maltese people and foreigners, because at the end of the day, we're all bringing an added value to our lives. And it's just, there's a tremendous amount of miscommunication for so many reasons. But I was wondering, for you, Rubina, I think your experience must have been also, how do you say, lucky in a sense, because given that you came here so young, you got to adapt to and understand the system so much more, which is sort of I don't remember if she would qualify as first generation immigrant or second generation immigrant. I always get confused with that. But for second generation immigrants, it is one of the privileges in a sense that you manage to adapt so much easier. But based on your experience, I imagine you also have Maltese friends, you went to a Maltese school, with work, with university. What is one thing that you would wish or that you see that there is in terms of perception of migrants in Malta, and what would you wish would change in that sense?
Actually, I think they should change the way how they are looking at the migrants. For example, they can see them that they are contributing to Malta, getting money by opening Arabic restaurants, or let's say, I don't want to be specified to Arabic, but any other traditions. They are sharing new traditions. For example, we at the university, we are sharing our culture. For example, when we have our feast or a national day. So people, they need to change the way how they are looking. They need to see the immigrants as they are getting a new tradition to Malta. And from opening new restaurants, a lot of tourists, they will come. They will try to try them. So it's a good way, to have immigrants in the country from that side. So they are getting for you new traditions, new restaurants, new languages in the country as well. So this is how I think they should change. They should see the immigrants as people they are contributing to the company. To the
to the company. I like it. I like it.
Well,
it sounds better.
And to the company as well. So
Mario, what have you been doing lately? You said sometimes you teach what is it called? Social work?
I don't teach so much anymore. That is something. No, mostly I'm working at Migrants Commission now.
Okay.
So I now work at the Migrants Commission, and
which is how we met.
that's how I met Elena. And my work is obviously related to migration, and we are doing a number of things. There was a bit of a rehaul also of the organization, and we offer a social work service. We're running an outreach program. We're creating different structures also for people living in the residences of the Migrants Commission. The Migrants Commission as an institution, everybody knows it, they're immigrants, and it's been offering a very good service to people for a long time. And now there's a bit of a change, and I am there now.
So it's like you at the centerpiece, or like the face. You meet migrants.
No, I'm not that anymore. But before, I used to be with different organizations. Yes, so I'm not working as a social worker at the Migrants Commission, but I have done that before. Yes, and throughout my life, I have also worked in detention centers, in open centers. For quite a number of years. So obviously my experience of, let's say, the professional life is very much shaped by those experiences. Also of, the people who work in detention centers, in open centers. Sometimes they are not always perhaps characterized in a completely fair way. There's always there are things that sometimes don't work well, and it's very good that, I'm part of that. The NGOs obviously call out and call on government to say, listen, this is not fair, or this is not right, this needs to be arranged. But I think we do sometimes overlook also the people who are working there. Some of them Maltese, some of them migrants themselves. And then obviously the relationships within very difficult contexts, because both the open centers and detention centers are both very, very, very difficult contexts for everyone to work in.
Which people are not even really aware of, I feel, the reality of what goes on.
Yes, not everyone would. Yes, that's something that I always met often in my life. People, even friends, would think that the places would look in a certain way. And obviously, when you experience them, the reality is very different. The reality is very different.
I would want to think that, maybe the audience as well, that the reason why you have such an outlook towards migrants for instance, Rubina is your friend, is because you work in this field. Is that a given?
I actually not sure, in the sense that I ended up working in migration, let's say by accident, not by choice. In 2004, there weren't many social workers who wanted to enter the field of migration, and I was very open to it. And I jumped into it, and I never regretted that, and I love it. So let's say it happened. There's always a question, what even Rubina was saying before, there's always the question of identity. And I think there is a healthy way of questioning and asking oneself, who am I, or who are we as a group, to speak about of identity. And then there is the other way, which is usually where most public discourse moves into, which is the unhealthy part. To go back to your country kind of thing. Obviously, there is a question of what makes the Maltese Maltese. What are the characteristics or values, perhaps, that makes the Maltese people who they are? And I think there are things and qualities that makes Maltese people Maltese, but often they're not what we are told in school. A lot of those usually don't help us, those stories. And I do think that we really need to, as a country, take stock of those stories, of what we tell each other and ourselves. And we can't change history, but we can change the way we look at history. And as Rubina said, often it's also a very Christian thought, the idea of you find yourself when you lose yourself. And perhaps that was a little bit my story. Through my work and through being and working with people from many different countries, and then finding something that is you.
So you finally found yourself.
I don't think we ever completely find ourselves, but well, let's say at 45 I kind of know who I am.
Exactly. Not like the 18 who we just started studying with.
We're just bashing on 18-year-olds in this episode.
No. I don't want to be stood by millennials. Okay. So it's been an interesting conversation with Rubina and Mario. Elena, do you have closing words?
I'm just very happy that we're having these conversations. Although they seem very basic in terms of, very self-intuitive things of what one experience is or not, I think it's just so important to be able to draw from one's own experience and to be able to share those things. And I feel like I'm learning something new every day, even if, it's something that it's a field that I'm interested in. But it's always like another little piece of the puzzle that makes it so the next time that I'm going to have an interaction with another person, I will be a bit more informed. And I think, that just makes me very happy. So I want to end on that.
Rubina, how many years from now you will become a medical doctor?
Let's say hoping after 5 years more.
Okay, we'll be having another conversation. 5 years, we're writing on our calendar.
Yes. And Mario will be a proud friend.
Yes, very
from you knew her when she was, a child and now a medical doctor, hopefully. It's been a very interesting episode with Rubina and Mario once again. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Face value on 103 Malta's Hearts. And with that conversation, we have come to the end of today's episode.
Yes.
And we'll see you again on the next episode. Please check us out on all our social media platforms. See you
next time.
Face Value, in collaboration with African Media Association, Migrants Commission, and 103 Malta's Heart.